The summer sun beat down on Lincoln Heights playground as children's laughter filled the air. 8-year-old Destiny Williams swung higher and higher on her favorite blue swing, her pink backpack resting safely under a nearby bench. Her dark curly hair, tied neatly with yellow ribbons, bounced with each movement as she enjoyed the peaceful Wednesday afternoon. Officer James Morrison sat in his patrol car across the street, his cold eyes fixed on the playground through his sunglasses. His police radio crackled with routine calls, but he paid no attention to them. Instead, his focus remained locked on Destiny, his fingers drumming against the steering wheel. The air conditioning in his car fought against the heat of the day, but small beads of sweat still formed on his forehead. Higher, higher. Destiny called out to no one in particular, enjoying the feeling of almost touching the sky with her feet. A few other kids played nearby, 2 boys on the slide, and a girl making castles in the sandbox. Mrs. Thompson, the kind old lady who lived next door to the playground, sat on her porch as usual, keeping a watchful eye on the neighborhood children while she knitted. Morrison checked his watch. 3:45 p.m. The playground would start emptying soon as parents came to pick up their children. His jaw clenched as he made his decision. Stepping out of his patrol car, he adjusted his badge and belt, trying to look as official as possible. The other children didn't pay much attention to him. They were used to seeing police officers in the neighborhood. Destiny slowed her swinging when she noticed the officer approaching. Her mother had always taught her to be careful around strangers, even those in uniform. She remembered her mother's words. Just because someone wears a badge doesn't mean they're always right. Something about the way Officer Morrison walked toward her made her stomach feel funny. "Hey there, little girl," Morrison said, his voice trying to sound friendly but coming out wrong. "I need you to come with me. Your mom asked me to pick you up." Destiny's heart started beating faster. She knew this wasn't right. Her mom always told her she would either pick her up herself or send Uncle Ray, her mother's brother. Never anyone else. "No, thank you," she said politely but firmly, getting off the swing and reaching for her backpack. "My mom didn't tell me anyone was coming." Morrison's fake smile disappeared. He grabbed Destiny's arm roughly, making her drop her backpack. "I said you're coming with me," he growled, his true nature showing through his thin disguise of authority. "Help!" Destiny screamed, trying to pull away. "Let me go. You're not supposed to take me." Mrs. Thompson jumped up from her porch, her knitting falling to the ground. "Hey, what are you doing?" she shouted, already pulling out her phone to call 911. The other children stood frozen in fear, watching the scene unfold. 2 teenage boys walking home from basketball practice heard the commotion and started recording with their phones. "Yo, what's that cop doing?" one of them said loudly, making sure Morrison could hear them. But Morrison didn't stop. He dragged the struggling Destiny toward his patrol car, ignoring her kicks and screams. Other people began gathering, shouting and recording, but no one dared to physically intervene with an armed police officer. "My name is Destiny Williams. Call my mom. Call my mom," Destiny shouted, remembering what her parents had taught her about stranger danger. She kept screaming as Morrison forced her into the back of his patrol car. Mrs. Thompson was already on the phone with 911, her voice shaking with anger and fear. "A police officer is kidnapping a little girl from Lincoln Heights playground. His badge number is 847. Please hurry." The patrol car's tires screeched as Morrison sped away, leaving behind Destiny's pink backpack, a crowd of horrified witnesses, and dozens of phone cameras that had captured everything. Within minutes, videos of the incident were spreading across social media, and calls were flooding into the police department. In her house just 3 blocks away, Tanya Williams felt her phone vibrate with a text message. She had no idea that when she opened it, her world would turn upside down. Her daughter, who should have been safely playing at the playground for another 15 minutes until pickup time, was now in the hands of a man who had sworn to protect and serve, but had betrayed that sacred juvie in the worst possible way. Tanya Williams dropped her coffee mug, letting it shatter on the kitchen floor when she saw the video. Her hands shook as she immediately dialed 911, but they already knew. The dispatcher's voice was tense as she explained that multiple calls had come in about Destiny's kidnapping. "That's my baby," Tanya screamed into the phone. "Officer Morrison took my baby." She grabbed her car keys and ran out the door, not even bothering to lock up. As she drove to the playground, she called her husband Marcus, who was at work at the city library. Marcus Williams felt his legs go weak as he listened to his wife's panicked voice. He immediately told his supervisor he had an emergency and ran to his car. His hands trembled so badly he could barely put the key in the ignition. "Stay strong, baby girl," he whispered, thinking of Destiny as he sped toward the playground. At Lincoln Heights Playground, a crowd had gathered. Mrs. Thompson was showing her phone video to two police officers who had arrived at the scene. The two teenage boys, Deshaun and Marcus Jr., were also there, sharing their footage with anyone who would watch. "He just grabbed her like she was nothing," Deshaun explained to the growing crowd. "Badge number 847, we got it all on video." His friend nodded, already uploading the footage to social media with the hashtag #FindDestinyWilliams. When Tanya arrived, the community surrounded her with support. Mrs. Thompson hugged her tight, still holding Destiny's pink backpack. "We got the videos, honey," she assured Tanya. "That monster won't get away with this." Marcus arrived minutes later, pulling Tanya into his arms as they both tried to stay strong. Local news vans were already showing up, the cameras recording the scene as more police cars arrived. The police chief himself, Chief Roberts, stepped out of one of the cars, his face grim. "Mr. and Mrs. Williams," Chief Roberts said, approaching them, "we've put out an alert for Officer Morrison's car. Every available unit is looking for your daughter." "Every available unit." Marcus's voice boomed across the playground. "Your officer kidnapped my daughter. I want the FBI here. I want everyone looking for my baby." The crowd murmured in agreement. Someone in the back started a chant. "Find Destiny. Find Destiny." The chant grew louder and louder until the entire crowd was shouting. Pastor Johnson from the local church arrived and quickly organized the community into search teams. People were printing photos of Destiny and Officer Morrison from social media. Local shop owners offered their security camera footage to the police. "We need to check every street, every alley," Pastor Johnson called out. "But stay safe, this man is armed and dangerous. Report anything suspicious to the police immediately." Tanya's phone wouldn't stop ringing. News stations wanted interviews, and social media was exploding with shares of the kidnapping videos. #FindDestinyWilliams was trending, and people across the city were sharing Morrison's photo and badge number. Marcus paced back and forth, talking to the FBI on his phone. "Yes, we have multiple videos. This is a hate crime. He targeted my daughter because she's black. We need federal agents here now." The police tried calling Morrison's phone and radio, but he wasn't responding. They sent units to his house, but it was empty. His neighbor said he had seen Morrison's patrol car speed past about an hour ago, heading north out of the city. As the sun began to set, the community set up a command center in the church across from the playground. People brought in computers, phones, and maps. Teams organized search routes, and local restaurants sent food for the volunteers. "We won't rest until she's home," Mrs. Thompson declared, setting up a table with coffee and sandwiches. "This community takes care of its own." Tanya sat in a chair, clutching Destiny's backpack, her eyes red but determined. Marcus stood beside her, his hand on her shoulder, as they watched the growing number of volunteers organize the search. Outside, car headlights lit up the darkening streets as search teams headed out in all directions. Police helicopters circled overhead, their spotlights sweeping across the neighborhood. On the church wall, someone had hung a large photo of Destiny's smiling face from her recent school picture. The message was clear: Officer Morrison had picked the wrong child from the wrong community. They would not stop until Destiny was safe at home and justice was served. As midnight approached, Tanya Williams stood in front of the TV cameras, her voice strong despite her tears. "To Officer Morrison, if you're watching this, bring my baby home, and to my Destiny, stay strong, baby. Mama's coming for you." The news stations broadcast her message every hour. Tanya knew how to handle the media. She had spent years as a community organizer fighting for better schools and safer streets. Now, she was using all her skills to find her daughter. "We need to push harder," she told Marcus as they sat in the church command center. "I'm calling everyone I know." She pulled out her phone and dialed Sharon Davis, a reporter she had worked with during previous community campaigns. "Sharon, I need you to run a special report," Tanya said, her voice firm. "I want everyone to see Morrison's face. I want them to know what he did to my baby." She looked at the wall where volunteers had put up a large map marked with search areas. Marcus worked at another table, talking to his contacts at the library. "We're checking security cameras from every business along his route north," he explained to the police detective. "Someone must have seen his patrol car." Mrs. Thompson brought fresh coffee and touched Tanya's shoulder. "Channel 7 wants to interview you again, honey, and people on social media are organizing candlelight vigils in 5 different cities." Tanya nodded, standing up straight and fixing her hair. She hadn't slept, but she wouldn't rest until Destiny was home. "Tell them I'll do the interview. But first, I need to call the Civil Rights Division again." The church doors opened as more volunteers arrived. They brought food, blankets, and laptops to help with the search. A group of tech-savvy teenagers set up a social media command center, tracking every mention of Morrison or Destiny online. Mrs. Williams called out Deshawn, one of the teens who had recorded the kidnapping. "The video has gone viral. Even celebrities are sharing it now. Look," he showed her his phone, where a famous singer had shared the video with millions of followers. Tanya grabbed the microphone they were using for announcements. "Listen up, everyone. I need search teams to check every hotel and motel within 100 miles. Take Morrison's photo, take Destiny's photo. Make them look." The police sergeant tried to tell her they were already doing that, but Tanya cut him off. "Your department let this man wear a badge. Now my baby is out there, scared and alone. We're doing this my way." Marcus watched his wife with pride and worry. He knew she wouldn't stop, wouldn't slow down until their daughter was safe. He remembered how Tanya had organized protests against police brutality last year. Now, their worst fears had come true in their own family. Tanya called Sharon Davis, rushing into the church with her camera crew. "We got something." A gas station owner 50 miles north recognized Morrison from the news. He was there 3 hours ago. The room erupted with activity. Tanya grabbed her coat, ready to drive there herself, but Marcus gently stopped her. "Let the FBI handle this part," he said softly. "We need to stay here in case there's news." Tanya's phone rang again. This time it was Congresswoman Lee, who had seen the story on the national news. "We're putting pressure on the Department of Justice," the Congresswoman assured her. "This is now a federal case." Outside the church, hundreds of people held candles, keeping vigil. They sang gospel songs and prayed for Destiny's safe return. The crowd had grown larger every hour as more people came to show their support. "Time is running out," Tanya whispered, looking at her watch. It had been 9 hours since the kidnapping. "That gas station is our first real lead. Morrison can't hide forever." Marcus hugged her tight as they watched FBI agents rush out to follow the new lead. The local news helicopter flew overhead, its spotlight joining the search. On the church steps, Pastor Johnson led another prayer. "Stay strong, baby girl," Tanya whispered, touching the photo of Destiny on the wall. "Your mama's got the whole world looking for you now. We're coming, baby. We're coming." The morning sun had barely risen when 3 black SUVs turned onto Oak Street, where Officer Morrison lived. The vehicles moved silently, their tinted windows hiding the agents inside. Neighbors peeked through their curtains, many of them already awake after a night of watching the news about Destiny. Inside the lead SUV, FBI Special Agent Sarah Johnson checked her weapon and bulletproof vest. "Target house is coming up on the right," she said into her radio. "All teams, get ready. Remember, there's a missing child involved." Morrison's small blue house looked empty, but a thin line of smoke rose from the backyard. Agent Johnson grabbed her binoculars. Through them, she could see Morrison in his backyard, burning papers in a metal trash can. "He's destroying evidence," she spoke quietly into her radio. "Team 2, cover the back. Team 3, stay on the street. We move in 30 seconds. Inside his yard, Morrison jumped when he heard the SUV's engines. He grabbed the trash can, trying to burn the papers faster. His hands shook as he watched his police badge melt in the flames. He had been up all night, watching the news coverage spread across the country. The SUVs stopped in front of his house. Before Morrison could run, FBI agents appeared at both his front and back fences. "James Morrison." Agent Johnson's voice boomed through a megaphone. "This is the FBI. Get down on the ground now." Morrison looked around wildly, like a trapped animal. "I have my service weapon," he shouted back. "Stay back." Think carefully about what you're doing, Agent Johnson replied calmly. The whole country is watching. Where is Destiny Williams? Morrison's neighbor, Mr. Chen, had his phone out, recording everything. More neighbors came out onto their porches. Someone in the crowd shouted, "Where's the little girl, you monster?" Agent Johnson signaled her teams to move closer. "Your fellow officers are ashamed of what you've done," she called out. "But if you surrender peacefully and tell us where Destiny is, it will help you in court." Morrison's shoulders slumped. He looked at the burning papers, then at the armed agents surrounding his yard. Slowly, he placed his gun on the ground and raised his hands. 2 agents quickly jumped the fence and handcuffed him. Agent Johnson walked up, her face stern. "Where is she?" she demanded. "My family's cabin," Morrison mumbled, looking at the ground. "Off Route 43. The girl. She's there." Agent Johnson immediately radioed the location to other teams. She turned back to Morrison, disgust clear on her face. "Why did you do it? Why Destiny?" Morrison said nothing, but the shame on his face told its own story. As agents led him to one of the SUVs, neighbors came out to film and shout at him. News vans started arriving, their cameras capturing everything. Agent Johnson called one of her team members. "Look what you was burning." He held up partially burned papers. Complaints filed against Morrison over the years for racial harassment, all of them ignored by his department. In the church command center across town, Tanya and Marcus Williams got the call they had been praying for. "We have him in custody," Agent Johnson told them. "Teams are heading to the cabin now. Stay where you are. We'll bring Destiny to you." The command center erupted in cheers and prayers. Mrs. Thompson hugged Tanya tight as Marcus fell to his knees in thanks. Pastor Johnson led everyone in a prayer of gratitude. Back at Morrison's house, Agent Johnson watched as other agents collected evidence from the yard. The burning papers. The hidden files in his garage showing his connection to hate groups. His computer full of racist messages. "Get everything," she ordered her team. "This isn't just about kidnapping anymore. We're going to expose everything." As the SUVs pulled away with Morrison in custody, neighbors came out to talk to reporters. "He always seemed so normal," one said. "But sometimes, late at night, we hear him shouting angry things when he thought no one could hear." Agent Johnson checked her watch. The cabin was 40 minutes away. Soon, Destiny would be safe, and a corrupt officer would face justice. The black SUVs disappeared down the street, leaving behind a neighborhood forever changed by the evil that had lived among them. FBI agent Sarah Johnson's SUV sped down Route 43, leading a convoy of police vehicles and ambulances. The morning sun filtered through thick trees as they approached Morrison's family cabin. Her GPS showed they were just 5 minutes away. "All teams in position," crackled her radio. "No movement visible inside the cabin. Power is on, curtains drawn." Agent Johnson thought about the scared little girl waiting inside. She touched the photo of Destiny she grabbed from the command center, showing a bright smile and yellow ribbons in her hair. "This one's personal," she whispered to herself. The convoy stopped half a mile from the cabin. Agent Johnson gathered her team. "Remember, Destiny's safety is our priority. Move quiet, move smart." She adjusted her bulletproof vest and checked her weapon one last time. Inside the cabin, Destiny Williams sat on an old couch, hugging her knees to her chest. She hadn't slept much, scared by the strange place and the mean officer who brought her here. Morrison had locked her in and left hours ago, leaving only some water and snacks. Destiny heard cars outside but stayed quiet, remembering what her mom had taught her about strangers. She wrapped herself tighter in the dusty blanket she'd found. Agent Johnson's team moved silently through the trees. Through her binoculars, she saw movement inside, a small figure on the couch. "I have visual on the child," she whispered into her radio. "Move in now." The cabin door wasn't even locked. Agent Johnson opened it slowly, her heart pounding. "Destiny," she called softly. "I'm Sarah, with the FBI. Your mom and dad sent us to take you home." Destiny looked up, tears in her eyes. "You know my mom and dad?" Agent Johnson holstered her weapon and showed Destiny her badge. "Yes, sweetheart. They've been looking for you all night. Everyone has. You're safe now." Destiny ran to her, crying. Agent Johnson hugged her tight. checking her for injuries. Besides being scared and tired, Destiny seemed okay. Let's get you home to your parents. The paramedics came in to check Destiny while Agent Johnson's team searched the cabin for evidence. They found Morrison's family photos, old papers, and a laptop they bagged for evidence. "Can I call my mom?" Destiny asked, sitting in the ambulance as the paramedics checked her blood pressure. Agent Johnson smiled and dialed Tanya's number on her phone. At the church command center, Tanya's phone rang. The whole room fell silent as she answered. "Hello, Mommy." Destiny's voice came through clearly. Tanya fell to her knees, crying. Marcus grabbed the phone. "Baby girl, are you okay? We're coming to get you." Agent Johnson helped Destiny into her SUV for the drive back to the city. "Your parents will meet us at the hospital," she explained. "Just for a quick checkup to make sure you're okay." During the drive, Destiny told Agent Johnson what happened. How Morrison had locked her in the cabin, how scared she'd been, but how she kept remembering her mom saying to be brave. News helicopters followed their convoy back to the city. People lined the streets, cheering and holding signs that read, "Welcome home, Destiny," and "Justice served." At the hospital, Tanya and Marcus ran through the emergency room doors just as Agent Johnson's SUV pulled up. Destiny jumped out and ran to them. "My baby," Tanya cried, holding Destiny tight. Marcus wrapped his arms around both of them, tears streaming down his face. Cameras flashed and people cheered, but the family didn't notice anyone else. Agent Johnson watched the reunion, wiping tears from her own eyes. Another agent approached her with news. "Morrison's talking. He's admitting to everything. We found years of racist posts on his laptop, complaints that were buried. This goes deeper than just him." "Good," Agent Johnson nodded. "We'll clean house. But right now, let's give this family their moment." Destiny looked up from her parents' embrace and saw Agent Johnson watching. She gave a small wave and a brave smile. Agent Johnson waved back, knowing that this brave little girl's story would help change things for the better. The morning sun shone bright as more community members arrived at the hospital, bringing balloons, teddy bears, and tears of joy. Destiny Williams was home, and justice was just beginning. 1 week after Destiny's rescue, Lincoln Heights Playground looked different. Fresh paint covered the old equipment, new security cameras watched over the area, and dozens of purple ribbons, Destiny's favorite color, decorated the fence. The whole community had gathered for what they called the Reclaim Our Space event. Tanya Williams stood at a small podium, holding Destiny's hand while Marcus stood proudly behind them. Hundreds of people filled the playground and spilled onto nearby streets. "Last week, this place was where our nightmare began," Tanya spoke into the microphone. "But today, we take it back. This is our playground. These are our children, and we will protect them." The crowd cheered. Destiny squeezed her mom's hand and smiled at Mrs. Thompson, who sat in the front row knitting purple scarves for all the children. The old lady hadn't missed a day at her porch since the incident, watching over the playground like a guardian angel. Police Chief Roberts approached the podium next, looking tired and ashamed. "Today is my last day as chief," he announced. "I failed this community. I ignored complaints about Morrison for years. Those complaints might have stopped him before he took Destiny." People in the crowd nodded. Some called out about time, while others just watched silently. The chief continued, "I'm announcing my retirement, and I support the mayor's choice for the new chief, Captain Lisa Martinez, who will be the first black woman to lead our department." Captain Martinez stood up, wearing her crisp uniform. She walked to the podium and looked straight at Destiny. "Young lady, what happened to you will never happen again in our city. We're cleaning house. Every complaint, every bad officer, we're investigating everything." Deshaun and Marcus Jr., the teenagers who had recorded Morrison's crime, now wore yellow vests marking them as Youth Safety Patrol. They had started a program where older kids helped watch over younger ones at the playground. "Look what we installed," Deshaun called out, showing everyone the new emergency call boxes around the playground. "Press this button, and it calls 911 right away. Plus, it starts recording video." Pastor Johnson blessed the playground with holy water, walking around its edges while people sang gospel songs. The mayor announced new funding for playground security across the city, naming it the Destiny Williams Safety Initiative. Destiny herself walked to the swings, her favorite spot. She hadn't been afraid to return. "Bad people don't win," she said loudly, making nearby adults smile through their tears. She sat on her usual swing, and other children quickly joined her. Mrs. Thompson got up from her chair and passed out purple cupcakes she had baked. "These are our streets," she said firmly. "These are our children. We look after our own." Local business owners announced they would take turns watching the playground. The ice cream shop owner promised free ice cream every Sunday for kids who help keep the playground clean and safe. The hardware store donated lights to keep the area bright at night. FBI agent Johnson came to the event too, wearing regular clothes instead of her usual suit. She hugged Destiny and gave her a junior FBI badge. "You're the bravest girl I know," she told her. "You helped us catch a very bad man." Tanya took the microphone again. "Morrison will face justice in court next month. But today isn't about him. It's about us. About community. About turning bad things into good things." Marcus unveiled a new sign for the playground. It read, "Lincoln Heights Unity Park, where every child is safe." Below the sign, they had planted purple flowers in the shape of a heart. The children played while adults talked and shared food. News cameras captured the scene, but this time with happy stories to tell. The playground filled with laughter again. Destiny pumped her legs on the swing, going higher and higher. Her yellow ribbons had been replaced with purple ones, but her smile was brighter than ever. From her porch, Mrs. Thompson watched and knitted, nodding with satisfaction. "See that?" Tanya said to a reporter. "That's what community looks like. We don't just survive bad things. We grow stronger. We make changes. We protect each other." As the sun began to set, the playground glowed with new lights. Children played, parents watched, and the community stood united. What had started as a place of fear had become a symbol of hope and change. 3 months after Destiny's rescue, Tanya Williams stood in front of the state capitol building. She wasn't alone. Hundreds of supporters stood behind her, many holding signs with Destiny's picture and the words "Never Again." "Today, we're making history," Tanya said into several microphones set up by news stations. "The governor is about to sign Destiny's law. This new law will protect our children from anyone who abuses their power." Inside the Capitol, Marcus and Destiny sat in the front row of the packed assembly room. Destiny wore a purple dress and held her junior FBI badge that Agent Johnson had given her. She listened carefully as grown-ups talked about the new law she had inspired. State Senator Richardson approached the podium. "Destiny's law will create a special task force to investigate any law enforcement officer accused of crimes against children. No more buried complaints. No more looking the other way." The new police chief, Lisa Martinez, stood up to speak next. "In the 3 months since I took over, we've fired 12 officers who had records of racism or abuse of power. We found their complaints hidden in old files, just like Morrison's were." FBI agent Johnson, now head of the Civil Rights Division's local office, shared more news. "We've opened investigations in 20 other cities based on what we learned from Morrison's case. This isn't just about one bad officer anymore. This is about changing the whole system." Destiny watched as more people came to speak. She recognized Mrs. Thompson, who had started a neighborhood watch program that was spreading to other cities. Deshaun and Marcus Jr. were there too, wearing suits instead of their usual youth safety patrol vests. "Our youth patrol program is now in 50 playgrounds across the state," Deshaun announced proudly. "Kids looking out for kids, with adults supporting us. We've already stopped 3 attempts to take children from playgrounds." The governor called Destiny and her parents to join him at the signing table. "This young lady's courage showed us what needed to change," he said, holding up the bill. "Destiny's law will make sure no child goes through what she did." Cameras flashed as the governor signed the law. He handed the pen to Destiny, who wrote her name carefully next to his signature. Everyone stood and clapped. Outside the Capitol, more good news spread through the crowd. Morrison had pleaded guilty to all charges. He would spend 25 years in prison. The FBI had also arrested 3 other officers who had helped hide complaints about him over the years. Pastor Johnson led a prayer of thanks, standing next to rabbis and imams from across the city who had all come to support the new law. "When evil shows its face," he said, "good people must stand together." Back at Lincoln Heights Unity Park, Children played safely under the watch of community volunteers. The Youth Safety Patrol program had grown so popular that kids had to take turns wearing the yellow vests. Every volunteer went through background checks, and security cameras sent live feeds to both police and community monitors. Captain Martinez had started a new training program for police officers. Every officer must spend time playing with kids at Unity Park, she explained to reporters. They need to see these children as their own, not as threats. Tanya hugged Destiny after the signing ceremony. You know what Mom does now? She asked her daughter. Destiny nodded proudly. You help make laws to protect kids. Marcus smiled at his family. He had quit his library job to help Tanya run their new foundation, which helped other families fight against police abuse. They had already helped 20 families get justice. As they drove home from the capital, they passed Lincoln Heights Unity Park. Kids waved from the swings, and Mrs. Thompson smiled from her porch, still knitting purple scarves for winter. Look, Mom. Destiny pointed at a new mural on the park wall. It showed children of all colors playing together, with the words, Our community protects all children, painted in bright letters. That's right, baby, Tanya said, tears in her eyes. We changed things, not just for you, but for every child, and we're not done yet. Agent Johnson watched the Williams family drive past. Thanks to Destiny's law, she now had more power to investigate bad officers before they could hurt anyone. Real change was happening, one law at a time. 1 year had passed since Destiny's kidnapping. Lincoln Heights Unity Park sparkled in the morning sun as people gathered for the first annual Community Unity Festival. Colorful banners hung from every pole, and the smell of barbecue filled the air. 9-year-old Destiny Williams stood on the new stage built in the park, looking out at the huge crowd. She wore a purple dress with a special sash that read Junior Community Leader. Her parents, Tanya and Marcus, sat proudly in the front row. Welcome, everyone. Destiny spoke into the microphone, her voice strong and clear. 1 year ago, something bad happened to me right here. But look at us now. She gestured at the transformed park, making everyone smile. The old playground equipment had been replaced with shiny new pieces. Security cameras peeked out from decorative flower boxes. Yellow-vested Youth Safety Patrol members walked around, now a familiar sight in parks across the country. Mrs. Thompson sat in her usual spot on her porch, but now she had company. Other elderly neighbors had joined her watching crew, all of them knitting purple items while keeping their eyes on the children playing. Morrison's time in prison is just beginning, Agent Johnson told the crowd during her speech. But the changes Destiny inspired are spreading. 20 states have now passed their own versions of Destiny's law. Police Chief Martinez took the stage next, wearing her uniform with new purple trim, the official color of community policing. This year, complaints against officers dropped by 80%, she announced. Every officer now spends time in our parks, playing with kids, meeting families. We're part of the community, not apart from it. Deshawn and Marcus Jr., now high school seniors, demonstrated the emergency call boxes they had helped design. These are in 500 parks now, Deshawn said proudly. And the Youth Safety Patrol has over 10,000 members nationwide. Tanya wiped tears from her eyes as she watched her daughter help cut the ribbon for the park's newest addition, a community center named the Destiny Williams Hope House. Inside, counselors would help children deal with trauma, and lawyers would work for free to help families fight injustice. Look what came in the mail today, Marcus said, showing Destiny a letter. It was from a little girl in Texas who had been saved by Destiny's law. The girl thanked Destiny for helping make her park safe too. The Williams Family Foundation, started with donations after Destiny's rescue, had grown huge. They now helped hundreds of families across the country stand up against police abuse. Pictures of smiling children covered the foundation's walls, all of them saved by new laws and safety programs. Pastor Johnson blessed the festival, standing with religious leaders from many faiths. Evil tried to divide us, he said, but look how united we've become. The celebration included face painting, games, and food from every culture in the community. Children played safely while parents relaxed, knowing that trained volunteers and reliable systems were watching over everyone. Agent Johnson had big news to share. The FBI has created a special unit based on our work here, she announced. The Children's Rights Protection Unit will make sure what happened to Destiny never happens to another child. Former Police Chief Roberts came to the festival too. He worked as a volunteer now, teaching new officers about what happens when good people stay silent about bad actions. I failed this community once, he told them. Never again. As the sun began to set, Destiny returned to her favorite swing. Other kids joined her, all wearing purple ribbons in their hair. Mrs. Thompson and her knitting crew watched from their porch, smiling at how much had changed. "Mom," Destiny called out to Tanya, "can we do this festival every year?" "Of course, baby," Tanya answered. "This is your legacy. You didn't just survive, you helped change the world." Marcus took pictures as families enjoyed the festival. The new park lights came on automatically at dusk, making everything glow warmly. The emergency call boxes gleamed, their blue lights blinking steadily, reminding everyone that help was always near. One of the youth patrol members, a young girl named Maria, approached Destiny. "Thank you," she said simply. "Because of you, we all know how to protect each other now." Destiny hugged her new friend as the festival continued around them. The park that had once been a place of fear had become a symbol of hope, unity, and change, all because one brave little girl refused to let evil win.